Hello, my friends. It's Indiana Holmes again for another night of story time. And tonight we continue with Red Harvest. We may actually finish this tonight. We'll see if it doesn't go too far over an hour, but maybe it'll stay within an hour. We're going to see how many chapters it takes to finish the book tonight. So we begin with Red Harvest, chapter 26, Blackmail. I had to push my client's doorbell a lot before I got any play on it. Finally, the door was opened by the tall, sunburned chauffeur. He was dressed in an undershirt and pants and had a billiard cue in one fist. "What do you want?" he demanded. And then, when he got another look at me, "It's you, is it? Well, what do you want?" "I want to see Mr. Wilson." "At 4 in the morning? Go on with you." And he started to close the door. I put a foot against it. He looked from my foot to my face, hefted the billiard cue, and asked, "You after getting your kneecap cracked?" "I'm not playing," I insisted. "I've got to see the old man. Tell him." "I don't have to tell him. He told me no later than this afternoon that if you come around, he didn't want to see you." "Yeah?" I took the 4 love letters out of my pocket, picked out the first and least idiotic of them, held it out to the chauffeur and said, "Give him that and tell him I'm sitting on the steps with the rest of them. Tell him I'll sit here 5 minutes and then carry the rest of them to Tommy Robbins of the Consolidated Press." The chauffeur scowled at the letter and said, "To hell with Tommy Robbins and his blind aunt," took the letter, and closed the door. 4 minutes later, he opened the door again and said, "Inside, you." I followed him up the stairs to old Iliu's bedroom. My client sat up in bed with his love letter crushed in one round pink fist, its envelope in the other. His short white hair bristled. His round eyes were as much red as blue. The parallel lines of his mouth and chin almost touched. He was in a lovely humor. As soon as he saw me, he shouted, "So, you're all brave talking you had to come to the old pirate to have your neck saved, did you?" I said I didn't think anything of the sort. I said if he was going to take a nap like a sap, he ought to lower his voice so that people in Los Angeles wouldn't learn what a sap he was. The old boy let his voice out another notch, bellowing, "Because you've stolen a letter or two that don't belong to you, you needn't think about thinking anything that you've got anything." I put fingers in my ears. They didn't shut out the noise, but they insulted him into cutting the bellowing short. I took the fingers out and said, "Send the flunky away so we can talk. You won't need him. I'm not going to hurt you." He said, "Get out," to the chauffeur. The chauffeur, looking at me without fondness, left, closing the door. Old Iliu gave me the rush act, demanding that I surrender the rest of the letters immediately, wanting to know loudly and profanely where I had got them, what I was doing with them, threatening me with this and that and the other, but mostly just cursing me. I didn't surrender the letters, I said. I took them from the man you hired to recover them. A tough break for you that he had to kill the girl. Enough red went out of the old man's face to leave it normally pink. He worked his lips over his teeth, screwed up his eyes at me, and said, "Is that the way you're going to play it?" His voice came comparatively quiet from his chest. He had settled down to fight. I pulled a chair over by the bedside, sat down, put as much amusement as I could in a grin, and said, "That's one way." He watched me, working his lips, saying nothing, and I said, "You're the damnedest client I've ever had. What do? You hire me to clean town, change your mind, run out on me, work against me until I begin to look like a winner, then get on the fence, and now you think I'm licked. You don't ever want to let me in the house. Lucky for me, I happened to run across those letters." He said, "Blackmail." I laughed and said, "Listen, who's naming it?" "All right, call it that." I tapped the edge of the bed with a forefinger. "I'm not licked, old top. I've won. You came crying to me that some naughty men had taken your little city away from you. Peter the Finn, Lou Yard, Whisper Thaler, and Noonan. Where are they now? Yard died Tuesday morning, Noonan the same night, Whisper Wednesday morning, and the Finn a little while ago. I'm giving you your city back whether you want it or not. If that's blackmail, okay. Now, here's what you're going to do. You're going to get hold of your mayor. I suppose the lousy village has got one. And you and he are going to phone the governor. Keep still until I get through. You're going to tell the governor that your city police have got out of hand, what with bootleggers sworn in as officers and so on. You're going to ask him for help. The National Guard would be best. I don't know how various ruckuses around town have come out, but I do know that the big boys, the ones that we're afraid of, are dead. The ones that you had too much on you for you to stand up to them. There are plenty of busy young men working like hell right now, trying to get into the dead man's shoes. The more the better. They'll make it easier for the white-collar soldiers to take hold while everything is disorganized, and none of the substitutes are likely to have enough on you to do much damage. You're going to have the mayor, or the governor, whichever it comes under, suspend the whole Personville Police Department and let them mail-order troops handle things till you can organize another. I'm told that the mayor and the governor are both pieces of your property. They'll do what you tell them, and that's what you're going to tell them. It can be done, and it's got to be done. Then you'll have your city back, all nice and clean, and ready to go to the dogs again. If you don't do it, I'm going to turn these love letters of yours over to the newspaper buzzards. And I don't mean your Herald crew, the press associations. I got the letters from Don. You'll have a lot of fun proving that you didn't hire him to recover them, and that he didn't kill the girl doing it. But the fun you'll have is nothing to the fun people will have reading these letters. They're hot. I haven't laughed so much over anything since the hogs ate my kid brother. I stopped talking. The old man was shaking, but there was no fear in his shaking. His face was purple again. He opened his mouth and roared, "Publish them, and be damned." I took them out of my pocket, dropped them on the bed, got up from my chair, put on my hat, and said, "I'd give my right leg to be able to believe that that girl was killed by somebody you sent to get the letters. By God, I'd like to top off the job by sending you to the gallows." He didn't touch the letters. He said, "You told me the truth about Thaler and Pete?" "Yeah, but what's the difference? What difference does it make? You'll only be pushed around by somebody else." He threw the bedclothes aside, swung his stocky pajama legs and pink feet over the edge of the bed. "Have you got the guts," he barked, "to take the job I offered you once before, chief of police?" "No. I lost my guts out fighting your fights, while you were hiding in bed and thinking up new ways of disowning me. Find another wet nurse." He glared at me. Then shrewd wrinkles came around his eyes. He nodded his old head and said, "You're afraid to take the job, so you did kill the girl." I left him as I had left him the last time, saying, "Go to hell," and walking out. The chauffeur, still toting his billiard cue, still regarding me without fondness, met me on the ground floor and took me to the door, looking as if he'd hoped I would start something. I didn't. He slammed the door after me. The street was gray with the beginning of daylight. Up the street, a black coupe stood under some of the trees. I couldn't see if anyone was in it. I played safe by walking in the opposite direction. The coupe moved after me. There is nothing like running down streets with automobiles in pursuit. I stopped facing this one. It came on. I took my hand away from my side when I saw Mickey Lennon's red face through the windshield. He swung the door open for me to get in. "I thought you might be here," he said as I sat beside him, "but I was a second or two too late. I saw you go in, but I was too far away to catch you." "How'd you make out with the police?" I asked. "Better keep driving while we talk." "I didn't know anything, couldn't guess anything, didn't have any idea what you were working on. Just happened to hit town and meet you. Old friends, that line. They were still trying when the riot broke. They had me in one of the little offices across from the assembly room. When the circus cut loose, I back-windowed them." "How'd the circus wind up?" I asked. "The coppers shot the hell out of them. They got the tip off an hour ahead of time and had the whole neighborhood packed with specials. Seems it was Juicy Roe. Well, it lasted. No duck soup for the coppers that night. Whispers mob, I hear. Yeah, Reno and Pete, the Finn, tangled tonight. Hear anything about it? Only that they'd had it. Reno killed Pete and ran into an ambush on the getaway. I don't know what happened after that. Seen Dick? I went up to his hotel and was told he checked out to catch the evening train. I sent him back home, I explained. He seemed to think I'd killed Dinah Brand. He was getting on my nerves with it. Well, you mean did I kill her? I don't know, Mickey. I'm trying to find out. Want to keep riding with me or want to follow Dick back to the coast? Mickey said, Don't get so cocky over the lousy murder that maybe didn't happen. But what the hell? You know you didn't lift her dough and the pretties. Neither did the killer. They were still there after 8 in the morning when I left. Dan Rolfe was in and out between then and 9. He wouldn't have taken them. I've got it. The coppers that found the bodies, Shep and Vannon, got there at 9:30. Besides the jewelry and the money, some letters old Wilson had written the girl were, or must have been, taken. I found them later in Don's pocket. The 2 Dicks disappeared just about then. See it? When Shep and Vannon found the girl dead, they looted the joint before they turned it into an alarm. Old Wilson, being a millionaire, his letters looked good to them, so they took them along with the other valuables and turned them, the letters, over to the shyster to peddle back to Iliu. But Don was killed before he could do anything on that end. I took the letters, Shep and Vannon. Whether they did or didn't know, the letters were not found in the dead man's possession. Got cold feet? They were afraid of the letters. They would be afraid they'd be traced with them. They had money and jewelry. They lit out. Sounds fair enough, Mickey agreed, but it don't seem to put any fingers on any murderers. It clears the way for some. We'll try to clear it some more. See if you can find Porter Street and an old warehouse called Redmond. The way I got it, Rolfe killed Whisper there, walked up to him and stabbed him with an ice pick that he had found in the girl's apartment. If he did it that way, then Whisper hadn't killed her, or he would have been expecting something of the sort, and wouldn't have let Lunger get that close to him. I'd like to look at the remains and check up. Porter's over beyond King, Mickey said. We'll try the south end first. It's nearer and more likely to have the warehouses. Where do you see this Rolfe guy? Out. If he killed Whisper for killing the girl, that marks him off. Besides, he had the bruises on her wrist and cheek, and he wasn't strong enough to rough her up. My notion is that he left the hospital, spent the night God knows where, showed up at the girl's house I left that morning, let himself in with his key, found her, decided Whisper had done the trick, took the sticker out of her, and went hunting Whisper. So, Mickey said, now where do you get the idea that you might be the boy who put it over? Stop it, I said grouchily as we turned into Porter Street. Let's find our warehouse. Chapter 27. We rode down the street, jerking our eyes around, hunting buildings that looked like deserted warehouses. It was light enough to see by now. Presently I spotted a big square rusty red building set at the center of a weedy lot. Disuse stuck out all over the building. It had the look of a likely candidate. Pull up next to the corner, I said. That looks like the dump. You stick with the heap while I scout it. I walked 2 unnecessary blocks so I could come into the lot behind the building. I crossed the lot carefully, not sneaking, but not making any noises I could avoid. I tried the back door cautiously. It was locked, of course. I moved over to the window, tried to look in. Couldn't because of the gloom and the dirt. Tried the window. Couldn't budge it. I went to the next window. Same luck. I rounded the corner of the building and began working my way along the north side. The first window had me beaten. The second went up slowly with my push and didn't make much noise doing it. Across the inside of the window frame, from the top to the bottom boards were nailed. They looked solid enough and strong enough from where I stood. I cursed them, and I remembered hopefully that the window hadn't made much noise when I raised it. I climbed on to the sill, put a hand against the boards and tried them gently, then gave. I put more weight behind my hand. The boards went away from the left side of the frame, showing me a row of shiny nail points. I pushed them back farther, looked past them, saw nothing but darkness, heard nothing. With my gun in my right fist, I stepped over the sill, down into the building. Another step to the left put me out of the window's gray light. I switched my gun to my left hand and used my right to push the boards back over the window. A full minute of breathless listening got me nothing. Holding my gun arm tight to my side, I began exploring the joint. Nothing but the floor came under my feet as, inch by inch, I moved forward. My groping left hand felt nothing until I touched a rough wall. I seemed to have crossed a room that was empty. I moved along the wall, hunting for a door. Half a dozen of my undersized steps brought me to one. I leaned an ear against it and heard no sound. I found the knob, turned it softly, eased the door back. Something swished. I did 4 things altogether. Let go the knob, jumped, pulled the trigger, and had my left arm walloped with something hard and heavy as a tombstone. The flare of my gun showed me nothing. It never does, though it's easy to think you've seen things. Not knowing what else to do, I fired again, and once more an old man's voice pleaded, "Don't do that, partner. You don't have to do that." I said, "Make a light." A match spluttered onto the floor, kindled, and put flickering yellow light on a battered face. It was an old face, of the useless, characterless sort that goes well with park benches. He was sitting on the floor, his stringy legs sprawled out far apart. He didn't seem hurt anywhere. A table leg lay beside him. "Get up and make a light," I ordered, "and keep matches burning until you've done it." He struck another match, sheltered it carefully with his hands. As he got up, crossed the room, lit a candle on a 3-legged table. I followed him, keeping close. My left arm was numb, or I would have taken hold of him for safety. "What are you doing here?" I asked, with the candle that was burning. I didn't need an answer. One end of the room was filled with wooden cases piled 6 high, branded Perfection Maple Syrup, while the old man explained that as God was his keeper, he didn't know nothing about it, that all he knew was that a man named Yates had 2 days ago hired him as a night watchman, and if anything was wrong, he was as innocent as innocent. I pulled apart the top of one case, the bottles inside, Canadian Club labels that looked as if they'd been printed with a rubber stamp. I left the cases and, driving the old man in front of me with the candle, searched the building. As I expected, I found nothing to indicate that this was the warehouse Whisper occupied. By the time we got back to the room that held the liquor, my left arm was strong enough to lift a bottle. I put one in my pocket and gave the old man some advice. "Better clear out. You were hired to take the place of some of the men that Pete Finn turned into special coppers, but Pete's dead now, and his racket's gone bluey." When I climbed out the window, the old man was standing in front of the cases, looking at them with greedy eyes while he counted on his fingers. "Well?" Mickey asked when I returned them to him and his coupe. I took 1 bottle of anything but Canadian Club, pulled the cork, passed it to him, and then put a shot into my own system. He asked, "Well?" I said, "Let's try to find the old Redmond warehouse." He said, "You're going to ruin yourself sometime telling people too much," and started the car moving. 3 blocks further up the street, we saw a faded sign, Redmond and Company. The building under the sign was long, low, and narrow, with corrugated iron roof and a few windows. "We'll leave the boat around the corner," I said, "and you'll go with me this time." I didn't have a whole lot of fun by myself the last trip. When we climbed up out of the coupe, an alley ahead promised a path to the warehouse's rear. We took it. A few people were wandering through the streets, but it was still too early for the factories that filled most of the part of the town to come to life. At the rear of our building, we found something interesting. The back door was closed at its edge, and the edge of the frame, close to the lock, were scarred. Somebody had worked there with a jimmy. Mickey tried the door. It was unlocked, 6 inches at a time, with pauses between. He pushed it as far back to let us squeeze in. When we squeezed in, we could hear a voice. We couldn't make out what the voice was saying. All we could hear was the faint rumble of a distant man's voice, with a suggestion of a quarrelsomeness in it. Mickey pointed a thumb at the door's scar and whispered, "Not coppers." I took 2 steps inside, keeping my weight on the rubber heels of my shoes. Mickey followed, breathing down the back of my neck. Ted Wright had told me Whisper's hiding place was in the back, upstairs. The distant rumbling voice could have been coming from there. I twisted my face around to Mickey and asked, "Flashlight?" He put it in my left hand. I had my gun in my right. We crept forward. The door was still a foot open. It let me in enough light to show us the way across the room to a doorless doorway. The other side of the doorway was black. I flicked the light across the blackness, found a door shut off by the light, and went forward. The next squirt of light showed us steps leading up. We went up the steps, and if we were already afraid, they would break under our feet, but they didn't. The rumbling voice had stopped. There was something else in the air. I didn't know what. Maybe a voice not quite loud enough to be heard, if that means anything. I had counted 9 steps when a voice clearly above us said, "Sure, I killed the bitch." The gun said something. The same thing 4 times, roaring like 16-inch rifles under an iron roof. The first voice said, "All right." By that time, Mickey and I had put the rest of the steps behind us. I shoved the door out of the way, and we were trying to pull Reno Starkley's hands away from Whisper's throat. It was a tough job and a useless one. Whisper was dead. Reno recognized me and let his hands go limp. His eyes were dull, his horse face as wooden as ever. Mickey carried the dead gambler to the cot and stood in one end of the room, spreading him on it. The room, apparently once an office, had 2 windows. In their light, I could see a body stowed under a cot. Dan Rolfe. A Colt service automatic lay in the middle of the floor. Reno bent his shoulders, swaying. "Hurt?" I asked. "He put all 4s in me," he said, calmly bending to press both forearms against his lower body. "Get a doc," I told Mickey. "No good," Reno said. "I got no more belly left than Peter Collins." I pulled a folding chair over and sat down next to him so he could lean forward and hold himself together. Mickey ran out and downstairs. "Did you know he wasn't croaked?" Reno said. "No. I gave it to you the way I got it from Ted Wright. Ted left too soon," he said. "I was leery of something like that, and that came to make sure. He trapped me pretty. Playing dead till I was under the gun." He stared dully at Whisper's corpse. "Game at that. Damn him. Dead, but wouldn't lay down, bandaging himself, laying here, waiting by himself." He smiled, and his only smile I had ever seen him use, "but he's just meat, and not much of it now." His voice was thickening. A little red puddle formed under the edge of his chair. I was afraid to touch him. Only the pressure of his arms and his bent forward position were keeping him from falling apart. He stared at the puddle and asked, "How the hell did you figure you didn't croak her?" "I had to take it out in hoping I hadn't. Till just now," I said. "I had you pegged for it, but couldn't be sure. I was all hopped up that night. I had lots of dreams, with bells ringing and voices calling, and a lot of stuff like that. I got an idea that maybe it wasn't straight dreaming so much as hopped up nightmares, stirred up by things that were happening around me. When I woke up, the lights were out. I didn't think I'd killed her. Turned off the lights, went back to take hold of the ice pick, but it couldn't have happened the other ways. You knew I was there that night. You gave me my alibi without stalling. That got me thinking. Don tried blackmailing me after he heard about Helen Albury's story. The police, after hearing her story, tied it to you, Whisper, Rolfe, and me together. I found Don dead after seeing O'Mara half a block away. It looked like the shyster had tried to blackmail you. And that the police were tying us together started me thinking that the police had as much on the rest of you as me. What they had on me was that Helen Albury had seen me go in and out, or both, that night. It was a good guess that they'd had the same on the rest of you. There was no reason for counting Whisper and Rolf out. That left you and me. But you killed her, and why you killed her's got me puzzled. I bet you, he said, watching the red puddle grow under the floor. It was her own damn fault. She calls me up, tells me Whisper's come to see her, and says that if I get there first, I can bushwhack him. I'd like that. I go over there. I stick around, but he didn't show. He stopped, pretending interest in the shape of the red puddle, and kept talking. I knew the pain had stopped him, but I knew he would go on talking as soon as he got himself in hand. He meant to die as he had lived, inside the same tough shell. Talking could be torture, but he wouldn't stop on that account, not while anybody else was there to see him. He was Reno Starkey, who could take anything the world had without batting an eye, and he would play it out that way to the very end. I got tired of waiting. He went on after a moment. I hit her door and asked her how come. She takes me in, telling me there's nobody there. I'm doubtful, but she swears to me. And we go back to the kitchen. Knowing her, I'm begging to think maybe it's me and not Whisper that's being trapped. Mickey came in, telling us that he had phoned for an ambulance. Reno used the interruption to rest his voice and then continued his story. Later, I find Whisper. He was on her phone as we were coming in and got there before me. You were coked. She was afraid to let him in, so he beat it. She didn't tell me that. Scared I'll go and leave her. You hopped, and she wants protection against Whisper coming back. I don't know none of that then. I'm leery, and I've walked into something. Knowing her, I think I'll take hold of her and slap the truth out of her. I try it, and she grabs the pick and screams. When she squawks, I hear a man's feet hitting the floor. The trap's sprung, I think. He spoke lower, taking more time and more pains to turn each word out calmly and deliberately. As talking became harder, his voice had become blurred, but if he knew it, he pretended not to know it. I don't mean to be the only one that's hurt. I twist the pick out of her hand and stick it in her. You gallop out, coked to the edges, charging at the whole world with both eyes shut. She tumbles into you. You go down, roll around till your hands hit the butt of the pick. Holding on to that, you go to sleep, peaceful as she is. I see it then, what you've done, but hell, she's croaked. There's nothing to do about it. I turn the lights and go home. When you, a tired-looking ambulance crew from Poisonville, gave them plenty of work, brought a litter into the room, ending Reno's tale. I was glad of it. I had all the information I wanted, and sitting there listening to and watching him talk himself to death wasn't pleasant. I took Mickey over to the corner of the room and muttered in his ear, "The job's yours from now on. I'm going to duck. I ought to be in the clear, but I know my Poisonville too well to take any chances. I'll drive your car to some way station where I can catch a train for Ogden. I'll be at the Roosevelt Hotel there, registered as P.F. King. Stay with the job and let me know when it's wise to either take my own name again or to trip to the Honduras." I spent most of the week in Ogden trying to fix up my reports so they would not read as if I'd broken as many agency rules, state laws, and human bones as I had. Mickey arrived on the 6th night. He told me that Reno was dead and that I was no longer officially a criminal, that most of the First National Bank stick-up loot had been recovered, that McSwain had confessed to the killing of Tim Noonan, and that Personville, under martial law, was developing into a sweet-smelling and thornless bed of roses. Mickey and I went back to San Francisco. I might just as well have saved the labor and the sweat I had put into trying to make my reports harmless. They didn't fool the old man. He gave me merry hell. And that, my friends, is the end of Dashiell Hammett's Red Harvest. The story is concluded. All the criminals have either been knocked off put in jail, confessed, arrested, or departed town. And now we see how it is and how it was and what happened in the end. I hope you all enjoyed it. It was a good gangster book, the kind that you see in film noir movies, like The Maltese Falcon, or The Big Clock, or one of those types of movies. A Pulp Fiction, if you will. A Pulp Fiction type of book. I enjoyed it. I hope you did. So we got done quickly tonight because there was only one chapter. I didn't know how many more chapters were left because I hadn't checked. But only one chapter. We're done now. So I'm going to end this now and go finish up my research on the next book that we will begin tomorrow night. This has been Indiana Homes. Love to you all. Good night.
Please hit the like button, subscribe, and hit the notifications button. Thank you very much.